Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Tuesday, December 21st Board of County Commissioners meeting. Is Ebony Morgan here? Come on up. Ebony's going to deliver the invocation. And if you could just tell us where you're from.
I'm born and raised Titusville, Florida. Been here all my life.
In which church or which congregation?
Apostle Vivian Thomas, Word of Life Centers International.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes. Lord, I'd just like to thank you this morning for each person that is present and each person that is sitting in the council seat. Lord, we just thank you for your presence. We're asking you to touch minds, hearts today, Lord, as each docket, each paper come across their desk. Lord, I just ask you for wisdom for each one of them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much. And with that, I'll call this meeting to order. Commissioner Lober.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to minutes for approval.
Motion approved.
Motion by Commissioner Pritchett for approval of minutes.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Smith?
Scott Henderson. Oh, there you are back there. I thought you were hiding. Hard for you to hide. Okay, I'm going to read this resolution, and then when I'm done, we'll give you the floor. Thank you for being here. Whereas the Space Coast considers as its most valuable asset the highly skilled workforce that throughout 6 decades has labored with dedication to establish and maintain American leadership in space. And whereas Blue Origin's investment into Brevard County and Florida's economy of over $1.5 billion with a B dollars has brought the prestige of rocket manufacturing to the launches of the Space Coast on a mission to build a road to space for millions of people living and working in space to benefit Earth. And whereas Blue Origin's orbital launch site has fueled economic opportunity, preserved the local wetlands, and strengthened the communal fabric of Brevard County as home to a workforce of more than 600 employees. And whereas Blue Origin's reconstruction of Launch Complex 36 is the first new launch pad construction at Kennedy Space Center in 35 years, requiring, now these are some big numbers, 3 million people hours, 538 million pounds of concrete, 160,000 tons of structural steel, and 200,000 bolts. And don't forget the bolts.
Are you saying bolts or volts?
Bolts.
Bolts, okay.
B-O-L-T-S, bolts. Yeah, it could be even more than 200,000. Sometimes you might put 2 nuts. Whereas the launch pad construction required the astronomical accommodations to support the New Glenn rocket, including the 574-foot tall vehicle access tower, which is the tallest structure at KSC, and the 353-foot water, which is the tallest water tower in the entire world. Whereas the New Glenn is a single configuration commercial heavy lift launch vehicle featuring a reusable first stage and an industry-leading payload fairing with 23-foot diameter, and will be one of the tallest American-made rockets to launch from the Space Coast. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby commend the Blue Origin team on their significant contributions to build a highway to space and offers congratulations on the construction of Launch Complex 36, done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 21st day of December, 2021. Madam Chair, make a motion to approve this resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Smith.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Commissioner Smith and friends on the commission. You know, the commission took a risk 6 years ago luring Blue Origin to Florida. We were competing against a lot of different states. Commission was a big part of drawing us here to Brevard County. So I think we have delivered on our commitments, and appreciate the chance to say thanks on behalf of our team at Blue Origin. You know, the New Glenn rocket, Kurt, as you said, is a reusable rocket, which is going to drastically reduce the cost of gaining access to space. It was named after John Glenn, who was pioneering from the Space Coast, first person to reach orbit. And it'll lift off from Complex 36 right here on the Space Coast, the first new launch pad that's built in Florida in over 3 decades. You know, what makes this project special is it's not just a launch pad, but we brought a manufacturing complex here to Florida. So it's the only place where a rocket is actually produced and launched all in the same place, and that has been a huge boon for the Space Coast. You know, our vision at Blue Origin is millions of people living and working in space for the benefit of the Earth. It's not something that's going to happen in our lifetime, maybe in our kids' lifetime, maybe in our grandkids' lifetime, but I think it's special that we're going to be able to say that that road to space started here in Brevard County at mile marker 0 right there at Complex 36. So on behalf of my teammates here, I want to thank the commission. You know, we've hired over 1,000 high-paying jobs here in the county. As you mentioned, over $1 billion of capital investment and growing. We have over 250 suppliers now in the area supporting us. We've had an average of 500 construction workers working on the pad. It has been a big benefit to our company and a big benefit to the county. I think it says a lot for the commission that they supported this project back when it was just me. I was here making the selection, employee number 1 in Florida, and now one of 1,000. So on behalf of our team at Blue Origin, thank you to the commission, and we're really proud to be partners here in Brevard County.
And I remember that day when you were the only one here. And I want to brag a little bit. I was the deciding vote to bring you guys here.
Thanks for that.
I'm very happy that I did that.
Commissioner
The pictures, oh, I'm sorry. The pictures up here, I want everybody to take notice of the sign. They've mimicked the 95 and the other interstate signs that we see across the country. And instead of interstate, it says interplanetary. Mile marker 0, launch complex 36. It's pretty cool. They did the ribbon cutting last month, and Rita and I were happy to be there.
And one neat thing about Blue Origin is we are flying reusable rockets. So I have for each of the commissioners a pin, the feather, which is the building block of flight that has flown to space and returned on James Kirk's mission just recently. So thanks so much for all your.
Thank you, Colonel. Is this under $25 in value, so I don't have an issue? Thanks.
You could probably get more for it on eBay. But I haven't tried.
Thanks.
So much.
Thank you. Commissioner Pritchett?
Mr. Henderson, I want to thank you for the pen. I was kind of hoping you would bring this one. But I just want to thank you. You are so nice, and your staff is just delightful, and you just have a happy program, and I think that's unusual. But I also want to thank you because you continue to expand out there. And when I get to go out there and take tours, which I'm hoping to get one with you again soon, it's overwhelming seeing what we're doing. And I do want to give a big thank you to Commissioner Smith, with him and the commission before, for helping bring Blue Origin in. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing that we have up in the north end of the county. And I just want to thank you so much for that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to mention one thing, and I'm sure everybody in this room knows it, or appreciates the fact that of all the thousands of rockets that we've launched from this county since the early 50s, not one has ever been built here, and that's going to change now. So congratulations.
That's
Thank
probably the most exciting thing for me. Commissioner Lober?
Colonel, I've got one question for you.
Brian.
Is your office still a dog-friendly office?
Absolutely.
All right, good, man. That's all I needed to know.
Bring your dog next time you come.
Well, you know what? You say that, I might just do it.
That'd be neat. Could I have, I've got a few of my colleagues that represent our team up at Blue Origin, so if you guys could come down and join us for the photo, that'd be great. Thank you, Kurt. Good to see you, buddy. Congratulations. Good seeing you. How are you? You can't show, if you're a rocket company, you can't show up without a rocket.
Okay, well, how about
you do that?
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, good deal.
We have some pink over here. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Is this for us?
Happy birthday.
Merry Christmas.
Doesn't cost more than $100.
Thank you.
Seeing you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for the honor.
Good seeing you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Appreciate it.
You just talked yourself into that? That's impressive.
Okay, moving on to consent. Does any commissioners want any items pulled?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I'd like to pull three of them if I could.
Okay.
17, 21, and 22.
anyone else? All right, can I get a motion to approve consent with the exception of 17, 21, and 22?
You've got it. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Tobias, second by Commissioner Lober. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Lober?
All right, I'll start up with 17, and just full disclosure, so people can relax, I'm planning on supporting it. But I did have a discussion with a constituent of mine who expressed some concern that the board may have been somewhat inconsistent in what we've approved and what we've given hard times to by way of federal stimulus dollars and how it's getting allocated. So I had some questions that I think will clear the air and just keep this on the up and up so that folks don't mistakenly perceive there to be an issue here that's not really present. So first off, I presume this is not something where we're simply cutting a check where there hasn't been any vetting. I would presume as well that the expenses that the monies that have been put in the agenda item with the request to transfer to these particular entities are all COVID-19 related. I don't know if staff's had a chance to look at it or if your office has, but I just didn't want folks to think that this is something having anything to do with something other than COVID-19. I think the vast majority of these nonprofits, not just the ones that are included on this item, but really all of them around here that deal with human beings, have had their costs increase and have had an increased need for services. So I just didn't want anyone to get the wrong impression with respect to that. Hence the reason I pulled it. It's not a slush fund. It's not that anything illegal is happening with it. We're talking about a set of entities that I don't think any of us on the board, or really any of us even on staff, I don't think any of us are on the boards for any of these groups, at least that I'm aware of. So just wanted to pull it to say that. I'll leave it at that, but I'll go ahead and move to approve F-17.
Yeah, I can assure you this has been through not only I've worked with Ian Golden with Human Services at length, and we vetted, made sure that all of these fell under the guidelines of ARPA, and it isn't just a check. There's auditing procedures in place, and they will all have contracts with the county to make sure the money's being spent as intended.
I got to tell you, I felt safe when I saw it on consent. I figured staff's not going to put it on consent if
Correct.
there's anything that's remotely ambiguous about it.
Correct. All right, so I have a motion by Commissioner Lober. Second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
And then if it's all right, I'll address 21 and 22 together. Frankly, these towns are so small and they're so far south of my district, I had assumed wrongly that we had auto aid agreements with them in the past. It's my understanding at this point, though, and I just wanted to pull these just to thank the cities and to thank staff on the county side as well for getting together and getting this done, because these were two of the last three countywide that did not have auto aid agreements with us. So this is something that I think is basically filling in the teeny bit of gap that's left. Frankly, the one city that I'm aware of that after we're done with 21 and 22 here will not have an auto aid agreement with us, Cocoa Beach. The Space Force or Air Force has stepped up, in fact, and we have the Space Force base covering South Cocoa Beach and Snug Harbor. So frankly, we have essentially the entirety of the county covered with auto aid agreements, and I just thought it would be a decent thing to pull it and thank the cities and thank staff for their hard work in getting this together, because this really is getting us to the point where the entire county can be colored in as having the coverage. So I'll move to approve F-21 and 22.
I have a motion by Commissioner.
Separate? Okay, in that case, I'll go ahead and move to approve F-21.
Motion by Commissioner Lober, second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, motion to approve F-22.
Motion to approve F-21 by Commissioner Lober.
22.
Or 22, F-22.
Yes, ma'am.
Second by Commissioner Tobias. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on to public comment. I only have one card. Brenda Wickham.
Good morning, Commissioners, County Attorney, and County Manager. Good
anyone. I'm here to represent Green Gables of Melbourne, Florida. It's a 126-year-old home on 1 1/3 acres that we're trying to save. I'm here to ask your support for a grant that's sitting in the State House now, a $500,000 matching grant that will enable us to buy Green Gables home and property from the William Wells family. I believe we deserve your attention on this matter and your respect for what we've done. I have 3 reasons. The number 1 reason that we are so proud of, we raised $500,000 on our own. We had no government entity, no big business, nobody wanting to partner with us. It was grassroots support that came through with the money, and wealthy people, just working people. We had some homeless that liked our property, and we adopted them too. So it's something that the people want. And so we're hoping that you will support this. The number 2 reason that I think we need your attention is it's on a beautiful parcel of green space, which is so big now. And it's 1 1/3 acres on the Indian River. This area north of 192 has seen big commercial growth, which is a good thing, but it's also hard on green space when big concrete buildings and things go up. So I feel that we're in an important position to offer the public a green space that they can come to, and we offer all family events. So that was my number 2 reason. Number 3 reason is the legacy of the William Twining Wells and his wife, Nora Stanford Wells. They were a pioneer Melbourne family that came down this way. They had been up to St. Augustine. They were looking for a home because Mrs. Wells had a lung condition and she needed to escape the winters. So their train stopped in Melbourne, and they were very impressed with Melbourne because it had the wonderful Indian River Lagoon, fish jumping out of it. They were hunters and fishermen. Also, the people were so friendly. But they went on this train down south, further south. Oh, may I continue?
I'm sorry, it's 3 minutes, and we have a lot of cards
Okay.
for
So
the rest of the meeting. But I appreciate your comments.
We'll be back on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra Sullivan?
Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Fiscal responsibility is very important to taxpayers, and increasingly so with the inflation we have seen on our garbage, fire, and utility increases by this commission. In the last meeting, I spoke about impact fees not being updated in 15 years. One additional point I would like to add is that other counties include Parks and Rec in impact fees, as growth means the need for new parks. Brevard doesn't do this, and I would encourage this to be considered so our taxpayers are not burdened with paying for growth. Our beachside parks are now crowded even on weekdays with overflow parking where they should not be parking. I also would like to discourage the county giving Driftwood Hotel $40 to $50 million when this hotel is in the process of buying additional properties and obviously has money. Our taxpayers are being burdened with additional increases, and yet we're considering giving $40 to $50 million to a hotel. I think a conservative value is not subsidizing business. You know that the Board of County Commissioners is charged with the responsibility of ensuring all purchases are made legally and responsibly in compliance with federal regulations, statutes, Florida statutes, county policies, and administrative orders as applicable, and bidding opportunities for all associated solicitation. documents for opportunities exceeding $15,000, especially when there's a change in vendor involves, in what capacity, I don't know, an elected official. Transparency for that contract is even more important. Recently, I learned that for a contract that begins January 2022, it is disturbing when a county department director indicated in writing that the elected person had been the broker and his company since 2014 for AFLAX, when in fact the RFP contract was awarded to AFLAX directly under this 2018 disability request for proposal, with the contract effective 1 January 2019. I am requesting this commission continue with the contract with AFLAX directly in January 2022 in the interest of following the policy of the county as stated on purchasing website until such time as the RFP can be advertised and fulfill per the policy of the county as it says in writing that this is a change in vendor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to public hearings. Item H1.
Good morning, Commission. H1 is a resolution and exchange agreement between Brevard County and Space Coast Town Center, requesting the board to execute any and all documents required to effectuate this exchange agreement. The developer is proposing an exchange agreement with the county for a parcel in exchange for easement rights to a new retention pond that they built. They would take over the ownership and maintenance of stormwater runoff from St. John's Heritage Parkway. The county originally, with previous owners, entered into a contract back in 2013 with a provision that contemplated possibly relocating 4.65-acre retention pond. While contemplating it, it was a possibility. It was not a requirement. The county, as part of a larger deal, building St. John's Heritage Parkway, spent $72,100 in doing that. The proposed exchange agreement is consistent. As part of this, the increase, we would get an overall increase in tax revenue, and it would provide overall employment opportunities, and it would decrease the maintenance for county responsibility by $2,000 annually.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Lober.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to do what you'd like with respect to this, but the one and only concern that I have that was brought to my attention by staff was the $2,000 a year really pales in value to the actual value of the land itself. When you look at the location, it is in a prime location. If you're comfortable with it, I'll support it. But I just wanted to make sure that this was something that you're in favor of before I just voted yes on it.
Yeah, I have a motion by Commissioner Smith, and I'll just say that, you know, of course, we spent a lot of time with this, and the $2,000 a year, I think, you know, there's retention there now. So as far as value goes, I believe that this is the best use,
okay,
you know, of moving that, swapping the retention, and I think it, you know, utilizes the best use for the property in the future. So
sounds good.
I'm in support of it.
I'll second it.
I have a second by Commissioner Lober. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item H2.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. This is a request for the board to consider an ordinance granting an economic ad valorem tax exemption to National Service Source doing business as USSI Global. The EDC Ad valorem Tax Abatement Council is recommending a 6-year, 60% of what the company invests in and is added to the county's tax roll. It is estimated this exemption will be approximately $3,900 a year, and they will invest $1.45 million. If you have any questions, I believe EDC is here to answer any questions you may have.
Desire of the commission?
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Tabaya?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, who's here from the EDC? I didn't.
I'm good with that.
Morning, Commissioners. Brian Baluta, Economic Development Commission of Florida Space Coast.
Thank you very much.
I just was curious if EDC this time sets the budget, so I appreciate you guys
Absolutely.
Showing up.
Okay.
I have a motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2. And I'll just say I voted for the motion because that's what the taxpayers who voted for tax abatement wanted. Or I think it's a good move, and I think they're on to item J1.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, Commissioner Pritchett.
Yeah, Commissioner Lober, I reached out to the gentleman, I know you brought this item, Commander James Coney,
Yes,
and I
ma'am.
asked him if he would mind if I tabled it, I had some time to spend with him, seeing it's in District 1.
Motion to table.
Okay, thank you. And a second? I second.
Motion by Commissioner Pritchett, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I have one card
Madam
just
Chair.
for questions. Okay. Yes.
Can I ask on that motion, did we give a date, or is that just?
Can we just let it go?
Okay, that's fine, absolutely. I was just curious.
Absolutely. No, I know you'll follow through with it.
Okay, thank
I'm fine with that.
Okay, I have a
Thanks.
motion and a second to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item J2.
Okay, so I'm going to try to go through some of this before we have public comment, because I think it's important. So basically, the crux of this and why I brought this up was I've had folks reach out to me that have indicated that the additional cost of doing the background screening really is a burden for their particular activities, rec partners, that is. The fact is, when it comes to rec partners, when it comes to county parks, we don't ID everyone that comes in there. We're trusting that the folks that they trust to serve as volunteers are going through the process that we have. I think it's a good process in terms of being very thorough. We don't just run FDLE, we run FDLE and FBI background checks. Not only do we do that, but we also have a recurring check in the sense that if something comes up, if there's an arrest, even after we initially submit the information, it will alert us and let us know that there was some blip on the radar, so to speak. And that's great, but I think for certain recreation partners, now that the cost structure is shifting over to them, where they're more and more responsible and ultimately fully responsible for these costs, the question is if this is something that's going to preclude them from being able to have folks participate and potentially hurt participation in their activity simply because they don't have enough volunteers. Is this something that we really need to force them to do? I think from the county's perspective, I don't want to lower the background screening that we do because I think there's a liability concern with respect to that. If we're saying we're doing screening, we've got to do thorough screening, which we're doing. However, what I'm looking at doing, and this would presume that it passes legal muster and risk muster from our insurer, what I'm looking at doing is having an opt-out provision where we say for those rec partners that don't want to spend a small fortune, if that's what they consider it, that they would be able to opt out of the county background screening. And just as we trust them not to bring folks who haven't been screened by the county, we would trust them to inform the parents or guardians of every minor that participates that, and we can give them a stock form. I'm happy to draft something and bring it by the commission and by legal to review before we go forward in that direction. But we could draft something essentially saying that the county has for a number of years performed background checks in the following manner. We specify what it is that we've done. In an effort to reduce costs to taxpayers, the commission on XYZ date had started to shift the cost of performing these background checks to rec partners, which is something that we've already done. However, recognizing that this may be a burden or an inordinate burden to certain rec partners, we've provided, or the county has provided, an opt-out provision whereby the rec partner itself is directly responsible for any level of background screening that they wish to undertake. mistake. The county is not, with respect to those rec partners who are opting out, taking any background screening measures whatsoever. And I would have a spot for the rec partner to essentially indicate what it is they plan to do, and then they can certify to us that they've delivered that or sent that to the parents and guardians of every minor that's participating. Is it a riskier thing in the sense of having it ambiguous and potentially not having background screening? Sure, but the fact, again, is we're trusting them to have folks go through the process that we have no ability to enforce anyway. We can't assure that every rec partner has every volunteer go through our process. So this is something where I just wanted to see, for today's purposes, what the palatability is with the board, basically putting this on individual responsibility, again, informing every parent or guardian that this is something that a particular rec partner has chosen to undertake. So it's not doing something to interfere with parenting. The parents have a choice to participate or not participate. And frankly, I feel more comfortable leaving it up to the parents to determine if it's something that they're comfortable with as far as their kids. And the rec partners that want to continue to go through the county screening, wonderful. We'll continue to go ahead and do it at the same cost. And for those that aren't, simply because it's a financial burden, they have an alternative, again, provided they notice the parents. So that's essentially where I'm at. I don't know if we want to hear from cards first or if anyone else wants to jump on.
Commissioner Tobias, I know your light's on. Do you want to hear? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I have 6 cards. Laura Countryman. Okay. Patrick Lepore. And after Patrick, we'll have Scott Farnham. Hi, if you could just state your name and
Yes, ma'am.
city.
My name is Patrick Lepore. 31-year Brevard County resident. My 57 years, born and raised in Florida. Your next door neighbor at the county attorney at the public defender's office. I'm also a father. Baseball is in my blood. I coach my 9-year-old currently. I've been with South Beaches Little League for 5 years now. Stephen Bond, our president, contacted me for some legal expertise and advice on this issue. I contacted the county attorney's office. I'm not sure of the assistant county attorney I talked to. I also spoke with the park and recreation director. Initially just trying to figure out why the additional background check above and beyond what Little League is already doing was imposed on the league. And in all due respect, because everyone was very courteous that I spoke with, I really didn't get a solid, concrete answer as to why the additional background check is required. The stock answer I got was, the headline type of answer. Well, I was informed the West Melbourne skate park incident. And as I began to process that, I did some research, and the West Melbourne skate park director was fingerprinted above and beyond the background check that Little League would have done. And as a public defender, I'm involved in the criminal justice system. Brian has some expertise in this area as well. Every day at our jail, persons are arrested and processed through the jail and brought before a judge, and a judge decides whether they are at a risk for release on bond or if no release at all. No fingerprinting is done every day. The cost would be enormous to the county. What's done is person provides their name, their date of birth, their social security number. It's run through the FBI database. It's run through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Office database, and pretrial release presents the report to the judge. The judges make their decision. It's obviously the risk benefit compared to the cost, just based on social security number, date of birth, is sufficient for the judges to make that decision. The only thing that I'm aware of that the county is requiring Little League to do is the fingerprint. And I don't have any statistics to present to you all, but I submit that the benefit of that extra fingerprinting is far outweighed by the enormous cost that it's going to require Little League to do that type of process. And I can tell you from experience, I have represented individuals. One was an attorney in this county. He was very well-respected softball coach, fully vetted by the Florida Bar. Fingerprinting is not going to catch that individual. That individual had no background that would have been caught by a background check. It's going to require due diligence by the parents and the coaches of these leagues and Little League
Thank you.
to address this issue. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Lepore?
Mr. Lepore?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Smith has a question.
Do I understand correctly that Little League actually, the background checks that are required by the National Little League, do they not exceed what we're actually asking for? And they're free? That's the other
President Vaughn
thing.
will be able to speak to that issue a little more authoritatively than I can, but my understanding is the Little League background check goes above and beyond the state requirements.
Okay.
Essentially, my understanding is what the county is doing is they're just doubling up. They're doing the same background check that Little League is already doing. The only further requirement that I'm aware of is requiring a fingerprint analysis, which is really what's driving the cost, is my understanding. So it almost seems like we're doing the process twice, and again, I submit the benefit to that double process is far outweighed by the cost for Little League.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tobias has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You've mentioned the public defender twice, I think 3 times.
I work for the public defender's office.
Yes.
Sir.
My question is, are you speaking on your behalf or are you speaking on that of the public defender? You brought his name
No,
up.
as I said, sir, I'm a coach. My son plays for Little League. I've been involved with Little League baseball since I was a child. It runs in my family. I coached my
I'm just looking for a yes or no. You're not speaking on behalf.
Absolutely not, sir. Has nothing to do with the
We
issue.
brought it up 3 times, so I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Anything?
That's it.
Thank you.
Scott Farnham?
Good morning. My name is Scott Farnham. I'm from Melbourne, Florida, and I'm the president of Galley Little League. To continue with what Patrick was talking about, we do background checks on everybody every year, not every 5 years, every year. Slight correction, Commissioner Smith, it costs us 95 cents per background check.
That much.
But it doesn't cost us $90. Okay. I did a little calculation. If this was to hit our league, that would take about 1/3 of our operating budget every year for the background checks. We simply cannot sustain something like that. At best, I'd have to raise fees, which then causes our attendance to go down because people can't afford it. And Little League gets them out of the house, gets them doing some exercise, gets them away from the video screens all the time. Nothing wrong with playing video games, but you know that's what kids are doing more and more these days. This gets them out, still gets them exercise, and so forth. I've been president for 11 years. I've been to these various ballparks. I've never seen anybody from the county. To speak to your question, I've never seen anybody out there checking IDs. Part of this $90, you're supposed to get an ID card. Talking with some of my fellow presidents, nobody gets the ID cards, and they're doing, at best, the same background check we're doing, if we're not doing more. I do approximately 200 to 250 a year. I understand the concern about getting a sexual predator in the league. That's the biggest fear I have of getting a sexual predator in my league. I personally do the background checks to make sure I'm checking him and finding it out. This person at the skateboard park passed the background checks. It didn't, in that case, it didn't help. Sexual predators, you have 2 cases. You have those that have already been caught that would be we would find the background checks, and the ones who haven't been caught yet. Background check isn't catching them. We're not trying to say we're not going to do background checks. We do. The entire time I've been president, and even before that when I was on the board, the league was having us do background checks. This is nothing new. Okay? Everybody gets background checked, myself included. Okay? And so we're not trying to skirt on it. It's simply saying we already do it. We're probably willing to sign any reasonable form for it. And I'm sure your lawyers can vet it out properly. But this is something that is just a cost that hurts kids, to be honest with you. And we're all here to serve people and to serve the kids, and I think it's a worthy goal. That's all I have.
Thank you. Aaron Hassam?
Good morning. My name is Erin Hissam, and I'm the Vice President and Registration Officer for Vieira Century Little League, right up the road from here. This is my 7th year serving as a volunteer in this organization, and I'm here today to share with you the detrimental impact on all of the Little Leagues in our community that will suffer by imposing a new background check mandate on our organization. The financial impact alone is significant, and in Vieira, it will cost us over $30,000 a year with our over 300 volunteers. We pride ourselves on being a nonprofit run by volunteers. If our volunteers don't exist, the ultimate impact is on the children of our community. Some of these children rely on these coaches, team parents, and teammates as the only positive parts of their day. They need these mentors to teach them the life skills such as working on a team, learning how to celebrate wins, and how to cope with losing gracefully. They learn more on the ball field than just basic baseball and softball skills, and that's thanks to the volunteers that we have to help them every day. We as a league cannot afford to pay these fees, and we cannot expect the volunteers of our organization to have to pay for registration fees along with an additional $100 impact fee based on being a volunteer. I would also like to point out that I understand, as others have said, that the security that we offer through Little League organization when we're running our background checks is far more intense than what would be offered here. Our background checks are pulled by Social Security numbers. I also would like to talk a little bit about how the volunteers are monitored. I'm on the field multiple times a week, and I did get my badge through the county, and I have never been once asked to show credentials on the field. I would like to leave you with a quote. A truly great volunteer is hard to find, difficult to part with, and impossible to forget. Please don't penalize our leagues by having great volunteers whose ultimate goal is to help the children of our community. Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, question?
Sure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tavaya?
Thank you. I'm just trying to figure out the 30,000. I appreciate you putting a number, and you said there were 300 volunteers?
We've been told that it will cost about $100 a volunteer, and we have over 300 volunteers.
Okay. I don't know. Who told you that?
We had figures sent through emails.
Okay. The 5-year cost, first of all, the number you're getting is not per annum. It's for 5 years.
Okay. But we have a rotating. We do it every single year. People leave and people come in. So you would still have to pull based on new people coming in, correct?
Okay. So if you did that and it was a 1 year, it's $44. So
Okay.
$44, and that's the full cost. The board voted unanimously for the half cost.
Okay.
So assuming your numbers, assuming not this first year, because this first year we're even paying half of it, times 300, it's less than half of the, not that $12,000 or $13,000 isn't a lot, but your $30,000, even worst case scenario with your numbers, is more than double the actual cost. And
Okay,
I don't mind having a disagreement, just as long as we have the same information. And these have been provided by county staff. The 1 year is $44.26.
Okay. That is different information than what I was given.
Okay.
But I can tell you, because I am a registration officer, so I monitor all of the funds that are coming in and out. Even that is significant, where we are already having children that have to come in on scholarship that we're covering their registration fees. And one of the what we say is, if you're going to come in on a scholarship, then the parent has to volunteer. So then it's going to cost us the registration fee plus also the volunteer fee.
I'm with you. I understand. I just want to make sure that the numbers that we're looking at and the numbers that you may have heard, I don't know where you receive those. A lot goes on Facebook that we don't monitor. All I have is here, and I'd be more than willing to, as would anyone here, to share what the actual numbers are, and then we can go from there and decide, if there's middle ground.
Regardless, I'm just saying, an extra fee on top of what we're already trying to do with what we bring in will be significant, and it would really impact the children. So, and I appreciate the opt-out option that was discussed, because that would help. Thank you.
I just want to make sure you didn't have a question for her.
No, ma'am.
Stephen Bond. And after Stephen, we'll have Ken O'Neill.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. Stephen Bond, President of South Beaches Little League. Every year we have 2 seasons, fall and spring, and there are 200 or more players playing every season. We also have 150 to 200 volunteers every season. What we also see, though, as a volunteer organization is that about 75 volunteers are turned over every single year. Kids decide not to play baseball anymore. Kids get older. Coaches decide they don't want to coach anymore. And so every year we have to conduct 75 extra background checks on average, just because simply for turnover. One of the interesting things about that is that Florida is one of only 10 states in the entire country that has enacted background check requirements for volunteers of non-school associated sports and athletics. Yet Little League requires it of every single entity in the entire country. Florida law requires private, non-governmental entities that organize, operate, or coordinate youth athletic teams in Florida to conduct annual level 1 background screenings, essentially for anybody that works over 20 hours. Sexual predator, sexual offender checks, employment history checks, and statewide criminal correspondence checks through the FDLE. Little League International's background check through J.D. Palatine conducts all of that and extends it even further, requiring of every single volunteer a physical copy of the driver's license, conducting a national criminal search instead of just a statewide search. Also a review of the U.S. Center for Safe Sport centralized disciplinary database, meaning any coach who has ever been disciplined with any affiliation will show up, as well as the Little League International ineligible list from affiliate leagues. The interesting thing about the background check through AUE is this year alone, the background check from Little League found 4 individuals flagged in my league as volunteers that were passed by the Brevard County background check process. Our league was never told of any issue of any of those individuals. We were never given any notification, and one of those individuals had a felony from another state. So there's a concern with what's being actually conducted as far as the background check and provided by AUE, and it kind of talks to what some of the other individuals talked about, the value of what the Little League background check is able to provide above and beyond. Financially, half of our revenue comes from registration. The other half comes from sponsorship, from concession stand, and fundraisers. So we are constantly having to hit the pavement. The 30% figure is straight optional. It actually is the additional 75 background checks we'd have to conduct every year would represent 30% of our actual budget every single year. And that's just a cost that, without being able to rely on sponsors and fundraisers and everybody else, that would significantly impact our league. I hope you understand we're not looking to avoid the background check, just kind of a duplicate process. Finding volunteers is extremely hard. It's the 80-20 rule. Some of us put way more time into it, and it is extremely difficult. And so for us to have this process already in place, I thank you, Commissioner, for offering the opt-out.
Right, Madam Chair, I don't want to repeat.
I'm not. There's another card. I just wasn't sure if you had a.
No, ma'am.
Ken O'Neill.
Sorry there, overeager.
Good morning. My name is Ken O'Neill. I serve as a district administrator for the local Little Leagues here in Brevard County, and I act as a liaison between Little League International up in Williamsport and the local league here in Brevard County. And they wanted me to bring a message to you that we need your help. We need your help to get this done. Little League, one thing that Little League does require, and it is not negotiable, is the background checks of any volunteer that comes into any of the parks, whether it be a county park or a city park. And that's how we vet these people out. We rely on the leagues to do a 100% background check on them. And to make sure that it is done, we have what we call a data center, and it does show the amount of volunteers that they do have, and Little League does know the amount of volunteers, the percentage that have been background checked. And that is forwarded down to me, and we let them know, and Little League lets them know that they need to continue with the background checks before they can proceed. We also have the background check that when we have tournaments and stuff like that, the umpires that we use as a district are also screened again through the district staff to make sure that any league that is coming to us, if they want to know if these umpires have been background checked, we can say yes, we can show them that they have been. So Little League is very strong and determined that the background checks all be done regardless. And to add extra fee onto this is not going to help their mission. Little League's mission is to continue to grow, to give these kids a fun, safe place to learn and play. And we don't want the league shrinking because they don't have the volunteers that can afford to play this. One thing that I want to mention is they mentioned about the scholarshiping. There are a lot of kids out there whose parents need the help to be able to play, and Little League doesn't turn any child away. So the leagues incur that cost of paying 100% out of their budget to cover that. We also have the Challenger Division, which I believe it's 2 to 3 leagues pay out of there, and we do not charge any child with any disability to play. We fund that all the way through going to their tournaments out of state, and every one of them is background checked. And we don't want to take away from that. We want to continue to provide these kids an opportunity to play. And adding on to this, to the leagues, is going to certainly hurt some of the smaller leagues. And in closing, Little League just wants me to send that message that we do need your help with this. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lober, before you start talking.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Mary Ellen, now question, I know we talked about this in the past, but based on obviously your expert knowledge and what we've done so far, and with this issue's been mulled over before in the past with a different issue, I guess, altogether, but does Little League, are Little League's background checks more intense than the county's?
To my knowledge, and from what I've heard from the Little League, no, because the county goes through FDLE to run FBI fingerprints. And I did contact their agency, J.D. Palatine, and I asked if they, in fact, did fingerprinting, and they responded no, and that they do not do national-level FBI checks.
Okay. That was my main question, but Commissioner Lober?
A few things.
Actually, let's go in order because you introduced the item and Commissioner Tabaya had his light on from the get-go. Sure. So Commissioner Tabaya?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And some interesting issues were brought up here. Unfortunately, and I just checked, or someone in my office just checked, this is, and I appreciate Commissioner Lober's eagerness to bring this forward, even though the board voted, I believe, unanimously months ago to institute the sharing of these fees. I think even I voted for it, even though I thought the responsibility should be on the rec partners. But it's merely a placeholder, and the subject line is create an option for recreational partners to opt out. I don't know, that's very broad. There's really no policy here. So I at this point, I'm uncomfortable of moving forward on what literally says placeholder period. I certainly would like to see the differences. There are a whole bunch of issues here. Palatine charges 95 cents, but FDLE, just the charge alone for FDLE is $8. FBI is multiples. Some interesting issues were brought up. JD Palatine apparently, and I have no way to confirm any of this stuff, was able to catch somebody who the FBI was not. So I think there's the numbers clearly that have been spread are those significant, many times less. There's a lot of misinformation here, and I certainly would like it written down. I do appreciate, again, this be brought forward because I think it's a worthy issue, but I think it's a lot to expect anyone on the board to make a decision with the term placeholder, especially when we're dealing with the safety of our kids. So the last individual got up here. I'll tell you what, I'm ready to vote. I'm ready to vote for this opt out. If little known fact here, I think we all agree that our governor is doing a pretty good job. Our governor was a Little League player, played in the Little League World Series. And if he got up here and said, you know what, I think that Little League should be able to opt out of background checks or fingerprints, if he was willing to say that, man, he'd certainly have my support. But short of that, I certainly would like to see the policy, and at this point would not feel comfortable, even though you just put down discussion, would not be comfortable moving forward. I appreciate everyone's time on this coming forward, but if there's a vote, I certainly, unfortunately, have to vote no, because there's really nothing there other than placeholder.
Commissioner Pritchett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to start out with thanking you guys for working with kids. I grew up playing ball, had the kids, grandkids, and I know it's so important for kids to learn team sports and to have trusted coaches and mentors in their life. It's very, very important. I do want to mention that we've been doing these background checks for 5 years, although the county's been covering the cost. And in those 5 years, we've picked up 137 people that have been denied. So it is doing its job. I did ask some questions about the Little League background checks. I've got to tell you, and I know you say that they have a cut cost, but Brevard County School has a cut cost, and they're able to do $47 for 5 years because they do it in-house. So I just know 97 cents, even if it's like cut down, is not the kind of background checks that we're able to do with fingerprinting. And the fingerprinting is nationwide. And the reason why that's important is we have so many people transferring to the state of Florida currently. Now, again, you don't catch all of them, but if you catch 137, that is significant with protecting children. My number one thought is always going to be protecting the kids. And I have to tell you, with the other position I've held in my life, probably not you guys, you'd be surprised how many children are grown up into adults have been violated. It's significant, and I will always err on the side of the children. So as far as the background checks, I'm not gonna budge on that. But the cost has my attention. If it's to stop the ability for children to play sports and have the cost covered, that's a different issue. So that I would be willing to figure out what we can do. But as far as the background checks, I'm not going to disagree with what we have as a good process in place. So I asked some questions, and I got a hold of our county attorney and started asking some questions, because I was able to talk to Mr. Stephen Bond, and he's a great guy, and I'm thankful you're heading up what you're doing. I do want you, if you would, to get a hold of our director and let her know which ones you caught and we didn't. I need to know what's going on with that. That had my attention, sir. But what I heard Mr. Bond say to me is, like, look, the coaches, we totally understand. He said, but, you got the concession stand workers, which are parents. And I thought, you know what, he's right on that, because we do a lot of ball on weekends. And the parents are required to go in there and volunteer once a month to work concession stands, and they're working with other parents. That doesn't make sense to me to have to do background checks on them. It might be a little overkill. So I talked to the county attorney, and there is a way that we could, redo some things to where you have to do the background checks on the people who are working with the children. So if you have the volunteers that are maybe selling items or those types of items, we're not directly working with the children, developing trust with these kids. We possibly could work on some language of that, if depending on what the commission feels with it. But Commissioner Tabaya, great work. There's a lot of bad information going around, but we can do a 5-year for $79, which is $15 per year to do these items. I'm not so much opposed to the county continuing to pick up half of that. But if the commission doesn't agree with that, I still think these background checks are extremely important for people who are working one-on-one with kids. And just, I can't argue with my testimony. I've seen things, and I know the significance of children that get affected when they're kids. It doesn't go away quickly, and it lasts a lifetime, and there's problems, and it's horrific. So if it comes to an cost to protect, I don't know how many kids would have been affected by 137 people. It's just something that's important to do. So whether we want to talk about cost and how to share the cost or whatever we need to do, I'm not going to bend on. For me, I'm not going to vote not to have people who are working one-on-one with kids having to have these background checks where they're fingerprinted, just because of what's at stake with the children.
Commissioner Lober?
A few thoughts, and I'm going to try to skip some of the items that were brought up by the speakers here, although I do think a lot of them do have merit. I agree with Commissioner Pritchett's statement that, that protecting children is important. However, there is definitely a slippery slope when you look at that. I mean, if we really wanted to do everything and pull out all stops to protect children and not allow for even the possibility of something happening, is we would say, okay, you can't use parks for events involving kids. Now you're never going to have an issue with a sexual predator because they're not going to be there. Alternatively, we could say you have to have a law enforcement officer anytime you have a volunteer with a child. Neither of those are reasonable. Both of those are totally just off the rocker crazy. There has to be some comfort level of risk tolerance because we acknowledge we want to allow kids to use parks and we don't want to have it so burdensome that we're effectively preventing them from doing that, which is, I believe, part of the concern that led to this, this group reaching out to me. As to what Commissioner Tabaya mentioned, as I told Mr. Lepore, my colleague, this is very much a discussion item today. The game plan was essentially to see what the palatability is with the board, what direction the board wants, not to push a vote today, to have a vote sometime in January on this. What I'll say is, with respect to their background screening and our background screening, I'm not warranting that they're equivalent. I'm not warranting that ours is better or worse or that theirs is better or worse. The fact of the matter is, I can tell you, having seen this for double-digit years in the context of criminal law, people fall through the cracks in all sorts of systems. We may have some fall through the cracks. They may have some fall through the cracks. The question to me is one of, what are we making them pay and what does that do toward their participation and their ability to continue offering the services they're offering? And if at the end of the day, as Commissioner Pritchett suggested, that we scale back who we require to vet, namely if they're not even interacting with kids directly, maybe that's enough that it takes 300 people and it makes it 150. Maybe that's one step to do it. In the alternative, or perhaps in addition, maybe we say for a 5-year background check, we leave it to the organization whether they want to do a 1-year or a 5-year, and we say, okay, even though it's X number of dollars, what was the cost, Commissioner Tabaya, for the 5-year?
$79.
$79, thank you. So we say, okay, we're not going to even make you pay your half of that up front. We will essentially finance it at no interest, and you'll pay a fifth of that, half of a fifth. So you'll pay 1/10 of that up front, and you'll pay 1/10 of that every year for the next 5 years to make it workable. Maybe that's something. I don't know. But I think toward what I was suggesting, if the board's just not comfortable with it, that's fine. It is what it is. What I was suggesting at first is whoever opts out, it's not that they're precluded from doing their own screening, and obviously this group's made it abundantly clear they have to do the screening. They're just opting out of having the county do it. And yes, in this case, and in most cases, I would imagine they're probably not going to do fingerprint checks. But if that's something where the increased cost makes it so that they can't do their activity, I don't know that we're really helping the situation by forcing that to take place. So I didn't know where folks were, but essentially if we can do what Commissioner Pritchett suggested, I think that's far better than nothing. In the alternative, if the board is, or the majority of the board is comfortable looking at perhaps having an opt-out where we say, okay, this group is a rec partner. If it decides to opt out, we'll generate a letter, and again, at the risk of being a little repetitious, we say what the background has been as far as what the county has been doing for years, why the county has changed to save taxpayers' dollars, and now that it's up to the individual rec partner to perform any level of background check that they feel is appropriate. They'll specify on the form in a field that's clearly set out for their filling. This is the level that they perform, and the county doesn't warrant that it's better, worse, or equivalent to what we're doing. And if they have concerns, that they can reach out to the county or to the rec partner for answers. I'm satisfied with that because, again, we don't check IDs at these events. We're not checking to make sure that only those who have been vetted participate, whether they're selling food or whether they're helping a kid adjust their grip on a bat. So I don't know where you all are, but I'm fine going the step that I suggested at first, or at least going the step that Commissioner Pritchett suggested. If you are comfortable with the step that I suggested as far as having that notice to the parents, I'll draft something between now and when we come back in January that essentially lays it out. I'll run it by legal, I'll run it by risk, and then see where you all are. But if you're not interested in that, I'm just not going to waste the time putting it together. So,
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to recognize Commissioner Lober. I thank you for thinking outside the box on this issue. When I heard about it, I was curious and interested. I'm an alumnus from Little League, long time ago. My grandson is an alumnus of O'Galley Little League, and from my perspective, all these parents are there because they care about the kids. They care about their own kids. So they're not going to turn a blind eye to someone that could be shady or illicit or any other adjective that you can come up with. So a certain amount of trust is involved just because of that. But I'm not saying that you can fully trust the parents of the, and I know it's the few parents. What was it, the 80-20 rule or 60-40 rule, whatever it is. But the parents that are there, they care and they watch and they look and they notice things. But we're not putting the entire onus on them because they already, in Little League, as I understand it, and as you mentioned, they already have background checks. And as you pointed out, Commissioner Lober, no background check is 100%. The only way to keep these kids completely safe is just do away with Little League. Then you don't have to worry about it anymore. But I think that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think that's onerous. I think it's preposterous and it's overboard. So if Little League goes away because of this being onerous and costing too much, well, we've saved the kids, but at what expense? We've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. So I would like to see Commissioner Lober come back to us in January with some proposals just to hear what he has to say.
And I'll let you talk in just a second. And, I'll be the Grinch up here, but I like what we have in place. I was at least along the lines with Commissioner Tobias where I thought the league should bear the costs. I probably grew up poorer than most of the people in this room, and all we did was fundraise. And I know it's an easy answer, but you want to play baseball, your family wants you to play baseball, you find ways to raise the money. So unfortunately, I'm always going to opt for the fingerprinting. So I'm not going to support anything that changes that. And somebody working in the concession stand, I know your intentions are good, Commissioner Pritchett, because I don't think, just like I don't think, volunteering, passing out paper or working in the cafeteria during lunch requires a fingerprinted background check, but we have to do that every so many years with the school even. So I think that would be difficult to manage, and we couldn't guarantee that they wouldn't be moving positions. I know I've been shifted around volunteering at grade schools and high schools over the years, so I'm not going to support any change in this, and that's kind of where I'm going to kind of dig in on this, because I've seen too many bad things, and there's always a way. I don't think Little League is not going to shut down because they have to come up with creative ways to raise money. I don't believe that for a second. And suggesting that people don't let their kids play at all, or they have sheriff's officers there to supervise is just ridiculous, because you could use that analogy with anything that any of us do. It's like saying don't drive a car because you might get into a car accident. So I mean, again, I'm always going to err on the side of caution when it comes to kids. So, Commissioner Pritchett?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. I'm leaning more towards that way myself. I do have to say, though, if you do the 5 years, $15.80 per year is what it averages out to. And this year, we're picking up half of it, so $7.90. Something that's got me a little bit curious with is growing up, and not that I don't believe it, but you have 200 kids and 225 volunteers. If I could get that kind of volunteers with things that I do for the amount of people I participate in, that's pretty phenomenal. So I don't know. I think we've had so many bad numbers going around. I just don't believe for a moment, like probably 70 coaches is what I'm guessing for the Little League, and $7.90, you just charge each kid maybe $1 more per kid to help cover some of these costs, or the fundraising, like you said. But again, and I mean, I get it. As far as having to add extra cost on what you're trying to do, especially when you have volunteers. And again, if the county continues to pick up half, I'm fine with that as well. But I don't know if you're going to have the votes for that. But I'm not going to vote not to fingerprint. And I do want to mention again, we start this in October. People are already doing this. We already have everybody complying so far. This is the first time it's come up with a hardship. So that would be the discussion of figuring out what to do with that. But as far as, saying the non-fingerprinting is good as the other, it's not. We caught 137 people that didn't go through the fingerprinting. I work at a church with child care. I have to get fingerprinted at the highest level every time. We all do to be checked because the goal is to protect the kids. And you can't tell me it's not out there. I know you pick up some, but I mean, my goodness, we had the Little League in the past with issues. I mean, Boy Scouts, and we've got all kinds of things going on right now with child predators. And I am just going to vote every time erring on the side of the kids. And if everybody just decides, well, I'm not doing it because I have to pay $15, well, then you know what? They're going to have to live with that. If somebody can't afford $15, you call me and I'll pay for it for you if it's a few people. I'll be glad to do it and jump in and help some. But as far as protecting the kids, it's always going to be my number one thing. So I just want to say that right now. So I'm with Commissioner Zonka on this. I don't know where the rest of the commission will land, but if it's a few bucks and it protects the kid, we're just going to spend the money.
Commissioner Lober?
Just the last thoughts, and I'll say with respect to what Commissioner Smith mentioned, since at least there's one up here, I'll put something together for January, and if it goes nowhere, it goes nowhere. I'll also put the alternative, another option that goes toward what Commissioner Pritchett was saying earlier, and we'll see where it goes. But I just want to caution folks, I wouldn't put too much stock in our having caught 137. I'm not saying that's 5% or 100%. I don't know out of how many that was. The other thing is I don't know that, for instance, with the Little League's background check that they've been doing, if you wouldn't have caught all of the 137, or perhaps maybe you would have caught more than 137. I don't know. So to have a number standing by itself without knowing out of how many or how many an alternative would have caught, it's of limited value for me. I want to err on the side of kids too, but I want to err on the side of kids having the ability to participate in an activity like this. I don't want, and I'm fortunate enough to do well enough in life that, if there were a Lexus League for kids, I could participate in that. But I don't want to see the folks that are driving older cars and living in smaller houses unable to participate, because it really may be a burden. So I'll bring some options back in January. But we'll see where it goes. I appreciate you guys having taken the time out of your day. I know this is probably one of the most boring things in the world for you to be at, especially being at the very end of the agenda. But I'll get this on for January. I'll get it out as early as I can. I'll send a copy to Mr. Lepore so he can. I'm sorry to volunteer you. I know everyone's going to hound you now.
Commissioner Lober, I would just caution to make sure that. And I don't know where Commissioner Tabaya is. If he's not going to budge on it, you're going to get everybody riled up for something that will never pass. So I would just say if Commissioner Tabaya sort of holds the cards on whether or not this board is going to support something like that, I just don't want to waste anybody's time just in case.
That's fair.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I hate when you do that, where you point out that people don't know where I am. So, no, it's fair. It's very fair, and I'm sorry I wasn't trying to.
Sometimes you're mysterious.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's the last.
Mysterious.
Short of any more information, J.D. Palantine charges 95 cents to do a background check. And just common sense tells me when the state charges for a background check $8. Now, J.D. Palantine's a for-profit company, I imagine, so they have to make some money off that 95 cents. And just to do the state fingerprint check costs $8. It tells me the level of scrutiny is many times less. And I could be wrong, but there's been no evidence presented to the contrary based on that. Nothing about what J.D. Palantine does or anyone else out there. So I find it, again, if the governor is who played Little League, I imagine you can get him on the phone relatively quickly and say, hey, we don't need to background check kids at Little League. If he wants to go on the record saying that, I'll support him on that. But short of that, I did support this. the phase out, even though I was in favor of the more draconian immediate switchover. However, the numbers are way off, and it's no fault of the participants up there. I don't know where they got those numbers. Had they called, I got an email. I called the individual back that I got the email from. I never heard back, which is absolutely fine. But I think we should at least start on some sort of consistency here. It was less than half of what those folks had been presented. I don't think anyone up here is trying to limit folks' ability to participate. I think we just have to balance this out. I played Little League not very well, but I played Little League baseball. We had to wear helmets. They were annoying. You know what? I never got hit in the head with a ball, but it is a precaution that at one time they decided probably wasn't necessary, and now is. It's a risk factor. What is that tolerable? And right now, based on the information that I've gotten from staff, and I appreciate staff has done, I shouldn't say staff, Mary Ellen has done a wonderful job. She went above and beyond calling J.D. Palantine and asking before, but they have not presented a fact in which they do a comparable job. And the basics, 95 cents versus even at the $44 level, there's something that does not make sense to me. And if you can show that that level is the exact same, then yeah, I would be willing to. But if we have to decrease the level of scrutiny we put kids in, I'm certainly not willing to make that for what amounts to, $15. So that's I hate to be obtuse on this one. I want to be as clear and transparent as possible. If it's the same level, yeah, it's absolutely something I would look out and probably encourage. But when you decrease the level of safety, and I don't know, it was brought up by you, right? 137. We caught our 130, I guess, Commissioner Pritchett. Would they have caught them first? Who were the 4 individuals that 95 cent business caught, but the FBI didn't? There's a whole bunch of questions out there that I think I would need to answer before I made a definitive. But right now, I'm strongly leaning with Commissioner Pritchett and Commissioner or Chairman Zonka right now.
I'll volunteer to give DeSantis a call.
Commissioner Lober?
Yeah, I just want to touch on something that you mentioned, Commissioner Tobias, and I understand why it would come across that something that's far less costly than another would automatically or most likely have a fraction the level of scrutiny. I don't know that that's the case, and in fact, I suspect that that's probably not the case. And what I mean by that, and I don't know if the Public Defender's Office uses Westlaw or LexisNexis, I can do a hell of a background check on someone and spend next to nothing. The reason being, I have access to a subscription that I pay irrespective of whether I use 1 or 1,000 queries. It costs me the same amount on an ongoing basis. They may spend a small fortune per unit time to have unlimited access, where the incremental cost for them to add 1 name or 300 names is literally a few cents or nothing. It's the time of the employee, whereas we're paying one-off for absolutely everyone, and whether we screen 1 person or we screen 10,000, it's not saving us any money. So if that's the concern, that there must be much less scrutiny, I can look into that and determine whether or not that's likely to be the case and bring more info back in January. I just would be reluctant to say that that's automatically the case. As far as saying it's exactly the same, nothing's exactly the same. It's like saying, is an apple or an orange better? It's a subjective question as to whether what they're doing or what we're doing is better. If there's a question as to whether what they're doing is sufficient, I'm happy to reach out and get the exact coverage, the scope of coverage that their contract provides for, and then take ours and put them side by side so you can look and say, okay, well, this is a difference. These are the same. In this case, the Little League is doing more than what we're doing. But I really doubt that they're doing such an abysmal job, especially given, and I understand anecdotal evidence is not necessarily the best, but hearing that 4 people were caught, at least 1 or more of whom were felons that we didn't catch, I think there may be something to it. So if you're interested, I'd bring that back as well. And I don't mind spending the time. I don't want to get folks riled up, as our chair had mentioned, unnecessarily, but I don't mind spending the time because I think it's a worthy cause.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Yeah, I just want to say when we got this, I've only been able to work on it for a couple days trying to get data. So as far as the names that they caught and we didn't, I still would like to see that and find out what it was and have Ms. Owner see that and see that data on it, because that has my attention. But I do want to mention that, you know, what we do is fingerprinting FBI. And if what other people do as far as a license check is the same as that, I don't understand why law enforcement would continue to do fingerprinting for those or schools. So that argument doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now. Not that, you know, maybe everybody's just kind of dumb and spending the extra money on it. But again, I'm telling you, I have to be fingerprinted massively every year, highest level, and I'm sure a few of us do up here. And so I know it is more extensive. And here's the thing, too, that has my attention. What we do is nationwide, and we have all kinds of people coming into the area. And so just doing local or the state right now, I don't think it's going to cut it. Again, I'm going to get off this now because I know we're discussing things, but I think that doing anything different than what we're doing, we're putting a high-risk population at higher risk, and I just don't think it's a good idea. Again, I grew up playing ball. My kids played ball. My grandchildren play ball. It's important to do this.
Did they fingerprint you?
No, but Commissioner Tobias said the helmets, when I grew up, they changed ours so we couldn't wear earrings when we played because it became a greater danger. So as you understand threats, you have to come with solutions to threats. But I do want to mention, you guys, I have been in ministry for 30 years. And I'm telling you, the amount of people that have been molested and don't get better, and here's the problem with that, they get molested, and then they learn a lifestyle, and it just starts a path. And with all this stuff going on right now, I think putting our most vulnerable population at any further risk over a few dollars is just not right. And for us to make a decision for $7, let's just say that we didn't do this, and one of those 137 people messed with kids, you know, I'm not going to sleep at night. And something else too, we back up on this, and a child does get messed with, I imagine we're going to get a lawsuit because we took something out of place that we had in place that was protecting children. So just another thing to think about, and I'm going to stop now.
Yeah, I think we'll probably beat this issue to death.
Moving right along.
No, I get it. It is passionate, and
I'll bring some more info for January.
for $7 a year, it's a hard argument to make against.
Yep.
I have no public comments for this session of public comments, so we're moving on to board reports. Frank Abate.
I have no report.
Ms. Joramby.
No report.
Commissioner Pritchett.
I just want to say Merry Christmas to everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful time with your family and that you just have a wonderful, blessed season.
Commissioner Lober.
I'll just echo what Commissioner Pritchett mentioned. Just Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, stay safe, stay healthy, don't drink too much.
Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm sorry to be the Grinch. I have three. Two are relatively quick, though, so that's the good news. If I could put up on the screen here, I don't know which one's coming first.
Oh.
Great. Billy Prasad in my office, who has been a integral member of the District 3 team, not only as an attorney, but a chief of staff and certainly a good friend, will be leaving the first week of the new year. He's going to work for the dark side, that being full-time county staff. I think it's absolutely best for him and his new family. And what is a loss for me is certainly a pickup for the county. I cannot thank him enough for his service. I think there might have been some questions as to how that happened. I'll assure you, it was through his wise counsel that many ideas never bubbled to the surface. So, it's probably not the greatest thing for our District 3, because he is such a calming factor. So anyway, I wish him absolutely the best. I know, like I said, the county will greatly benefit from his experience, and I want to thank him personally for all the work and extra time that he's put into the office. So thank you, Billy. You'll do extremely well at the new job. So number 2, guys, I failed at this, but for some strange reason, you guys got the gist of it. Here is the list of the resolutions. Ever since we came up with that idea of putting them in consent, instead of having them run on and on and on, even though I couldn't get the vote, you guys went by it. So I wish that, your no votes, you would go by the spirit of it anyway, but there's a list of the resolutions. I want to thank everyone. I know staff would thank us if they could. Certainly the only people that have been harmed are the individuals that make the frames that we have to hand out. So I want to thank the board for,
Are we the meanest, Commissioner Tobias?
Cutting it down as much as possible.
The grinchiest.
He's just showing us how many more slots we have, just so you know.
Yeah, well, that's per year.
Yeah.
That is per year. So, technically they're 0 again. So
You got the name wrong.
Oh, goodness gracious, Bethany. I didn't even catch that.
That's all right.
Okay. I'll blame it on
It's
Billy.
only been over a year, so it's all right.
I'll blame it on Billy. I didn't catch. Goodness gracious. My bad. And finally, I make some tough votes, but usually I stand behind them. There was a vote that I made recently that has brought a little consternation. I wanted to bring it back up to the board here. And this was dealing with the emergency rental assistance. My goal as an elected official and a policymaker some of the time when you guys agree with me is that the flack ends with us as a board and not with staff. Staff does a very, very good job managing a large and diverse group of folks delivering services. Having to take on the extra burden that we place on them for policy is something I think probably outside scope and certainly takes away from limited time. So Ian Golden has done an absolutely excellent job with this sensitive matter. I've spoken with a few folks that have dealt with this, and not only did they speak with Ian's staff, they spoke with Ian personally. So just as a side note, of course, I'm not generally in favor of this emergency rental assistance. It's millions and millions and millions of dollars that have been coming down from the federal government. However, that is the decision that policymakers on top of us made. And I think Ian's done a great job. We could get into the specifics of this. Other counties have gone through this much quicker than we have. We've been diligent making sure that the landowner or the landlords get it, not the individuals, so they could squander the money. So thank you, thank you, thank you. However, what my focus is on folks with litigation pending against Brevard County. We put that in, and the Treasury looked at that as a provision, and they okayed it. The county legal staff looked at this, if there was anyone precluding any federal law precluding us from doing this, and they informed us to the best of their knowledge there wasn't. So I had to fall on, and to be very clear and full disclosure, this is all about staff. There isn't one individual right now who has been caught up by this. However, there's been an inordinate amount of time that has been spent by Ian and his staff legal department dealing with this very issue. So that is the goal of this. So here's where it comes. There's lots of people that sue the county. There are some that are really, really, really frivolous. So I asked for one. and I got the okay from the legal department to say this, but the case of Nicholas Hetherington, a cow wandered onto a road property that we own, but was leased to another party, and we have no responsibility for said cow or the property. Driver hit the cow and then sued us. This is absolutely crazy. Would I like to pick this person out and decide if he or she wanted to sue the county that they should be? Absolutely. There are frivolous cases out there. But unfortunately, guys, there are also cases where it is our fault, and common sense would dictate that. Let me give you an example of one. A Miss Carolyn Fry Parks, who was injured in relation to an elevated deck at a park that we agreed we should have maintained better. She fell through some decking, and we made a mistake. We didn't do it on purpose, but we made a mistake. And she would get caught up in this if she needed rental assistance. So for people that are legitimately suing the county, it's very difficult. If there's a way to determine one and not the other, but the way it stands right now, understand that person that sued based on the cow would have the ability to get the rental assistance because the case is closed. But the person who got injured through negligence of the county would not have the ability to get that. That would then fall on Ian to make that case. I can't make that case as a policymaker. I think it's extremely difficult for Ian to make that case because we know Ian wouldn't say it's the 5 idiots up here who made that decision. So I just feel that's extremely unfair. I would like us to reconsider either doing away with that, or I'm not an attorney, a way that we can decide what frivolous is. I have no idea. I'm just uncomfortable with this dichotomy here of people that legitimately are suing the county and don't have the benefit that everyone else would, even those folks that, as I pointed out here, who have had frivolous lawsuits. So, but at a minimum, I want to thank county staff for their time and their effort. And I wish they could, the time they were spending on a few cases could go to focus on the bulk of folks that they need this type of assistance. So I wanted to pass that out to, and again, I voted for this. So to be very clear, it was something that I did not see. And I would like to a mulligan for a better term, and I wanted to see where the rest of the board would be on this.
Commissioner Lober?
A few things. I'm stupendously opposed to it, to give you the conclusion, and then I'll tell you why. I got the email that I'm sure everyone up here got from the convicted criminal who was demoted in the military for having taken a plea, I think instead of rape, to sodomy and something else, who misquoted Don Walker actually about the subject matter of that email and the basis of his threat to sue us. In fact, I understand from Ian that the same individual, this is the person who I'm assuming spurred this particular interest, claimed more dependence on at least one of his several applications than his dissolution authorized him to claim. He also wrote that he didn't file tax returns from what I saw in that. This is a serial fraudster who has been either the subject of more conspiracies than any other individual on earth, or he's really just a horrible, despicable human being who games the system and tries to basically suck every ounce of blood and money out of anything that moves. Not a good person. I have no problem going through more of his background if you want, but the bottom line is he's a horrible, horrible human being. Only God can judge, but I have a pretty good idea of how this one's going to get judged. As far as whether the incidents are our fault or not, that the basis of the lawsuit may involve, I'll make it easy. If there's a pending lawsuit and someone thinks that they were otherwise would have been entitled to this money, add it to your damages claim. It's additional losses that you would have suffered due to the wrongdoing of the county. They can add it to their claim for damages. And if we've caused their foot to go through a particular board and they believe that we were negligent, we had a duty to them, and we failed that duty, and as a result of our failure, they were injured in addition to their medical bills and whatever else they choose to claim as damages, add the rental assistance, because if they otherwise would have qualified for it, they otherwise would have qualified for it. Problem solved.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Thank you. County staff, do we have a lot of this situation going on, stopping people from getting assistance from lawsuits with us?
Morning, Commissioners. Happy holidays. We actually have not had an application yet that's had to be denied due to this issue. The individual that's being discussed submitted an application that was a copy of a previous application, which is not allowable under the program. So that would be the reason that that application would be rejected as incomplete. The law actually requires that we have new applications and that we redo income eligibility every 3 months when they look at prospective payments. That's why we require new applications and new information. We did not receive any of that. So that was not the reason. And so as of right now, we have not had anyone in that situation. That individual was given an explanation that if he did apply again, this would, in fact, come into play.
Okay, so I don't know about the individual level. I haven't even thought about that, but Commissioner Tobias, you brought up some good points. You know, this is federal funds, and I'm always trying to get these funds out, so whatever we don't spend, we end up having to send back. But in the midst of this, when we're talking about this, it's really the landlords that suffer, guys. And, you know, again, we manage an apartment building, and I can't tell you the people that just won't pay rent and they can't get assistance. So it's the people that owns them that are really being penalized if someone can't pay the rent, because you can't even really evict them currently. So I'm willing to look at this, especially since we don't have a whole bunch of them. And you know, you mentioned that because, like, if someone genuinely got hurt, the only remedy you have is to sue. So add an insult to injury if there was federal funds to help them pay the rent. So I'm willing to take a look at it. So,
Commissioner Lober?
Again, with respect to their being somehow harmed at the end of the day, they can add it to their claim for damages, so we don't burden ourselves or staff in determining who has a meritorious suit or not. If they're meritorious and they get to the point of discussing damages, that's the time to bring it up. As far as the landlord suffering, the one individual who I'm aware of, and I think this is, again, the only reason this came up.
This is the only reason why this policy is in place, is for this one individual, and that's what I take issue with. And again, I'll let you speak, but I mean, you've already spoke once, so I'll just say that, you know, we probably should never have put the policy in place on the fly based on a board report, and I don't like that it appears retaliatory, because that individual, if he applied for assistance today, he would not qualify based on the policy that we put in place. Because I'm not here as judge and jury of any individual. I just don't want this board to be responsible for somebody to being evicted. I don't care who it is. You know what I mean? Personal history or not, he's not a personal friend of mine. However, I don't think that I've got the right to harm anyone. So, I mean, I would be in support of rescinding this because I think it's punitive. And I think by the mere fact that it only affects one individual says as much. So if he's not qualified because he doesn't do the application correctly, that's on him if he can't provide the correct information. But I don't like this. I don't like this board being used as a sledgehammer. So I definitely, never mind the constitutional issues I have. So if someone wants to make a motion to rescind the policy, I'll support it.
So we have
Commissioner
no issue.
Tobias, you can speak after Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think policymakers, we have to do our best to look through non-jaundiced eyes, and whether this impacts one person or whether this impacts 100 people, the impetus behind this is not who it directly impacts. It's the amount of time that I didn't understand would be placed on county staff that could be going towards other ideas. I guess I should have asked how many hours, based on the emails that have gone back, how many times, just apparently on one certain case. So my reason to do this is not for an individual. I tried never to make decisions as a policymaker as to harm or to help a single individual. That certainly is not our job. We look out for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of folks. And anytime our attention gets fixated on one person, then I hope we have that bandwidth to look out, for the other hundreds of thousands of people that people entrusted us to do. So my point is, this is 100% for staff. I would not want to be in Ian's position right now, and I'm not saying that because how he looks. I am saying that because he has gone above and beyond, and I could not handle a phone call with this data. There's no way that I would want, as a leader, someone who works under me, not that he works under me, but alongside of me to handle that. So here's the one thing I would appreciate a vote now, because goodness gracious, I mean, I'm sorry to bring this up again. I screwed up. I voted the wrong way. If I had to do it over again, I'd change. But I certainly don't want to bring this up again at a later time. So if it goes down, I'd never bring it up again. I admitted my mistake. So I would make a motion to rescind the provision based on pending litigation that was previously put in place as a condition for emergency rental assistance.
Question, Commissioner Tobias. It's not just pending litigations, it's intent. I mean, it's a whole,
that law.
There is no written policy, I've come to find out. It was just based on the minutes from the meeting, but maybe clarify that we rescind the policy based on, well,
there's many great provisions that we put in that were aimed at fraud or abuse that looked at everyone. I certainly don't want to rescind all of the great ideas that were put forth by staff. So any of the ones that were mentioned in that, not motion, but policy to...
When do you want it effective for?
I would...
Do you want it the policy never happened? Like you want it rescinded from the date of implementation, or do you want it rescinded
I don't even
today?
know if it was implemented, because
apparently it was.
How about effective immediately? I don't know. I would guess. Yeah.
I apologize for interrupting. I just want to get some clarity. There is a policy for the emergency rental assistance program that was board approved. You took a vote, and there was a direction at the September 21st meeting that is what you're referring to regarding pending litigation, letters of demand, and I can't remember what the third item was.
It was actually the notice for
notice. Thank you.
Of intent to sue.
Notice of intent.
So all three of those, Madam Chair?
Yes.
All three that were just mentioned by Ian, pending, notice, and in current litigation, were those the three that were? I'm not an attorney, so I didn't know there were this many steps.
Could the motion just be to rescind the motion from the September 21st meeting?
Yes, that was the board direction, was September 21st.
Okay, then yes, to rescind the motion from the September 21st meeting.
Okay, is that clear to the clerk? Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Tobias. I'll let you speak. Do I have a second?
Second for discussion.
Second by Commissioner Pritchett. Commissioner Lober?
Again, I know this board has attempted in the past and voiced its displeasure of having votes and board reports unless it's an emergency. As we've heard from me, and this hasn't precluded anyone from getting emergency rental assistance. So I would suggest that we not do something impulsively. I would also suggest that folks talk to the sheriff about this particular individual. And Commissioner Zonka is correct in that, yes, this does affect one individual at this point, or may affect one individual. That doesn't mean that it's only intended to affect one individual. The fact of the matter is, if I know that one person's abusing the system and that there is potential for more to abuse the system and a likelihood that more will abuse the system or are abusing the system, I'm not going to wait to have more of a problem and allow things to mushroom before I address it with the board. The fact is, again, the same individual, and I want you to understand, if you support this in a board motion vote that wasn't noticed and the public had no opportunity to comment on during a report, the fact is this individual lied on their application, to my understanding, not just about their dependents, but also about leaving out income. So if you want to rescind this, I would be okay doing that if you also add something saying if the county has reason to believe that you've lied about your income or lied on your application, you should also be denied, unless you just want to, I mean, maybe out of someone's discretionary funds from CARES or ARPA, maybe they just want to give him a check knowing that he's screwing the county and screwing the taxpayers.
Ian, I mean, if someone falsifies or there's incorrect information on the application wouldn't go through anyway, correct?
Some information that we are not able to verify. But when a allegation is brought to us, we do have remedies in the policy that's already been established.
Okay. Such as?
We have the ability, and we have in the past, referred people to law enforcement.
Has this one been referred to law enforcement?
This one has.
Okay, so we're talking about rescinding something to fund someone who's been referred to law enforcement.
Commissioner, the policy that was in place would address that. The direction from the 21st was separate from that.
So
we also have. We also. I'm sorry.
Because you're saying that would address it. I agree, would address it by going to law enforcement. But the question is, would he get funded while law enforcement's in the process of investigating? Because we're never getting the money back afterward. Never.
Again, we're talking about one individual, and we're being judge and jury. I mean, if he defrauds the government, these are federal funds, then he's responsible for that. And Commissioner Pritchett?
I have concerns when we get on an individual level. Again, I don't know about this situation, and I understand there could be problems. A question would be, is rescinding this, are there any unforeseen consequences otherwise right now? And let me ask you this. Let's say we do this and we're like, whoops, we should have left it. We can always come back and put it back in place, correct? Okay, so Commissioner Tobias, I would rather if we wait and do it in January, just so I had a little more time, but if the only way to do it is today to do this, because I don't want, again, having to deal with landlords, I mean, it's difficult not being able to collect rent. So the money goes to the landlord, doesn't go to the individuals. Correct?
That is correct.
But I do agree, if someone's turning in fraudulent information, we catch that and they're disqualified, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because that's important as well. So, Commissioner Tobias, that's what I would rather do, but if the only way for I make a change right now and then come back for discussion later, because then it's only a few weeks anyway. So, again, I don't want to hurt any families out there. So,
Commissioner Tobias?
I certainly don't want to. This was a board report. Initially, and I tried to do away with that, and then here I vote on a board report and vote the wrong way, and I ask. So I certainly don't want to put you in a tough spot. I was doing this for Commissioner Smith because he's probably heard this enough, and I appreciate it. So I'm willing to, if you'd feel more comfortable. Just understand that this is probably going to be another 10 or 15-minute discussion. Should we bring it up again? I won't make the arguments again. I'll just bring the motion. I obviously only control my microphone, not anyone else's. So please understand that, I'll just bring it up. You can, have the floor with the chair's discretion at that point. So I'll rescind the motion because I want you to be comfortable on this one.
I believe I'm going to support it. I would just, if we could.
So can I rescind my motion and move to table this?
There's no pending applications anyway, so we can do it in January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Pritchett.
There's no pending applications anyway. I'll just caution this board. Let's just keep it on topic. I mean, I get Commissioner. Commissioner Lober's made his feelings very clear about how he feels about this individual. Let's try to be tactful. Let's try to be professional. Again, this should never be about one individual. It really shouldn't. But that's kind of our mistake for approving it. I had no idea that was the reason why it was suggested or put in place. But I guess it's fine if it comes back to the board. I would support it today because for the argument that this was not noticed and put in board reports, that's how you presented the item, Commissioner Lober. I was just trying to do the right thing. So I'm fine with waiting or I'm fine with supporting it today, whatever you guys want to do.
Madam.
Commissioner Commissioner Tobias.
For Commissioner Pritchett's sake, I just moved to table it till she can get some more information till the January 11th meeting, which I believe is our next.
Okay, so it's rescinded? Okay, all right. Anything else, Commissioner Tobias?
No, Madam Chair, sorry.
Commissioner Smith, anything exciting from you?
No. I just wanted to say, and what has already been said, Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy holidays. I hope everybody enjoys themselves, has good family time. A special shout out to Mr. Golden. He wins the title this year, kind of by default. Not that it wasn't a great outfit, because it really, really is. But Mr. Liesenfeld, his order fell through, didn't come in time. So you guys get to see what he had in store for you next year. So with that, that's it. Happy holidays.
And I just challenge this board to do the same thing next year, but everybody get involved. I think it's a lot of fun. Thank you to our amazing county staff, to my personal staff, Danielle, Charlene, and Jeanette. I couldn't do this without you guys. I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a safe and happy holiday, and just be safe out there. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.